21st century, we have seen an exponential rise in waste products worldwide. Every year in the UK, over 20 million tonnes of edible food ends up in landfill with a net worth of £23 billion, whilst in the US, annual food waste could solve world hunger alone.
Veganism, to break it down, is just when shops throw all the food away at the end of the day and people recognise this and go and collect it and cook it themselves and distribute it to their friends. You're not going in a bin as in if you'd imagine a bin on the street, but it's just literally, I think of it as a plastic tub full of food, that's it. So it's not really dirty at all, because obviously the food that they're selling is not dirty. It's kind of an anti-consumerism movement, basically against the way that supermarkets trade their products and the amount of food that's being wasted. And the food's not just food, you find all sorts of things in the back of supermarkets.
For me personally, I don't really like the idea of sort of breaking into somewhere and then rummaging through dirty bins for food.
The food we find, it ranges, you won't believe it. There's sweet, savoury. For example, at Waitrose we were getting all the fresh pastries to complement our full chicken dinners that we'd find. Vegetables, we was coming home with orange juices, cakes, just anything in the whole store that was past its sell-by date.
I can see why people do it. Obviously there's a rising cost of living, people are struggling to make ends meet, and these supermarkets are throwing millions of pounds worth of food away every month, which to be honest, I think is ridiculous as well.
Talking about the legal side as well, I think they were more bemused that people actually wanted things from a bin. I've never once got ill off anything that we've got. It wasn't just the security guards that were getting stricter and more in the know, it was the supermarkets as well. They put an early sell-by date on things just to cover their own backs, because it's health and safety got mad in the age that we live in.
I think it would be an idea to donate a lot to charities or like the homeless. I think it's a personal choice. If you want to do that and it's not causing anybody any harm, then why not?
In essence, the way it's changed is that it's got a lot more tighter and it's not as easy to do anymore. I've got a couple of friends that work in supermarkets, and they say that sometimes they just compress them in the big machine, just compress all the waste food, which is absolutely scandalous.
A lot of food does get wasted from supermarkets, because I know when I have to put food in the bin for little health and safety reasons, it does seem like a big waste, so I can see why people do it.
They may put a week before it actually goes out of date, and there's even been studies to show that certain foods last for a couple of weeks or even a month after this sell-by date that they set. That's another kind of unwritten sort of rule or moral code, is that, it's good to share it out and give something back to the community, and just redistributing the waste that's so scandalously been thrown away by shops at the end of the day.
Veganism is a great way to gather food whilst helping the planet, but if rummaging through bins isn't for you, there are so many alternatives to shop-bought food.
I initially conceived of this as a farm which would grow commercial crops. I think that's still an option. You can see all the space that we've got. You get some quite exotic things. You get kind of coriander. Some of the Bangladeshi women grow interesting things. Like they're into mustard seed and things like that. Some of these vegetables, I don't know what they are now. Thought I'd grow some veg, grow lots of veg, hand it out in the community. I used to get the crops and take them up to the landings and give them to families up on the landings, because I couldn't eat it all. I didn't want it all really. So, and they did. So it was about giving free food to people. And it's become now about people working in the land and getting food. The great thing about this new garden is that every single plot you see here is an individual, and it represents the community. So there's Somalis, Pakistanis, Afro-Caribbeans. Everyone who lives locally is involved. I think it pretty much covers the whole spectrum. So people need to find areas of wasteland like this and take them over with council support.
Allotments aren't just confined to the countryside and are much more common in urban areas than you may think. Take a step further and there are other interesting practices worth knowing about.
With like foraging and picking apples and stuff like that, you can see the food growing on the tree or on the bush or whatever, and you can have a real link to it instead of just going to the supermarket and picking a packet off the shelves.
Urban foraging is what it is. Food can literally be found all around us. I've been foraging in playing fields, along canals, in public gardens, in car parks. It's really surprising what you can find. I've found apples, pears, blackberries, mushrooms. In Sheffield there's a number of community gardens that can be used by anyone. People can come together to grow their own produce. Obviously urban foraging is seasonal and what you can get is dependent on that time of year. But surprisingly there are some types of apple tree where you can pick well into December. There's a lot of groups which work with the council to plant fruit-bearing plants as well as many vegetables. You do have to be a bit careful you're picking the right stuff. I would advise to look on the internet or in books to make sure you don't pick anything poisonous.
Awareness and support of such practices can go some way to reducing poverty and food wastage all over the world. From inner city foraging to freeganism and allotment, it may surprise people to find that there are so many alternatives to shop-bought food. With the continued work of people and charities alike, it may not be too long until we see positive